aren't many individuals on the planet who don't enjoy interactive sceneries with rockets and explosions blasting through the walls, which is also great in terms of story, ingenuity, and aesthetics of the time. With a massive open world, quick guerrilla-style fighting, and actual physics-based demolition, we're talking about a game that reshaped the bounds of entertainment based on destruction. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Red Faction. The first-person game Red Faction, often known as RF1, was launched on May 21st, 2001. The story goes as follows. Workers have been enticed to mining positions at Ultor, with claims of high salary and tremendous experiences, as well as a wonderful life down on Earth during the year 2075. All of these assurances were false. Life in the tunnels was miserable. Workers were beaten by guards and treated like trash on a regular basis. And with a peculiar condition called the Plague that had no remedy, the death rate rose. But not everyone dealt with this torment without a grudge, and the Red Faction thus formed is a powerful underground rebellion. The game is influenced by a number of recent science fiction movies, including the film Total Recall, among many others. The game's geomod engine technology, which allows users to drastically alter and furthermore impact the local environment and structures, possibly with bombs or otherwise, is one of Red Faction's key selling features. Earlier games permitted for modest changes to the environment via programmed ways or specifically prompted regions that added or removed preset level features. One of the earliest games to provide players unexpected level-altering options was Red Faction. Because of the way it identifies transformed, or geomodded, locations, Geomod allows the player to substantially alter the environment. Most game engines had to change the structure of the affected object to achieve the same effect, whereas Geomod generates special blank space objects. When an explosion, for example, bursts a hole in a stone wall, Geomod technology creates an empty space entity that is roughly the same size and shape as the explosion. Because tunneling is needed to finish part of the level, the practice level employs a significantly larger empty space component than the missile launcher can create in other situations. This game's multiplayer options feature an astonishing number of multiplayer gameplay for modes like Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, and Capture the Flag, all of which are comparable on the PlayStation 2 and PC versions. On the PC version, unlike the PS2 version, users cannot play with AI or split screen, and must instead play with online real-life gamers. In contrast to the single-player adventure, novices have a slim chance of surviving in an online multiplayer game when they confront skilled opponents. The critical response to Red Faction has been overwhelmingly good. Game Rankings and Metacritic, two review aggregation websites, rated the PlayStation 2 version an 88 and an 88 out of 100, respectively, and the PC version a 78 and a 78 out of 100. Both PC and PS2 versions were widely accepted by the audience and can definitely be considered a success. Red Faction 2. It is set on Earth and follows a squad of elite troops, including Alias, the main character. A hidden technology created on Mars was used to improve the physical abilities of these warriors. Molov, the team leader, is voiced by Lance Henriksen, and Shrike, the automobile specialist, is voiced by Jason Statham. Features like interconnecting stages, the ability to relocate corpses, and weaponry groups have been removed from Red Faction, offering it a much more arcade feel. Geomod technology is also limited in Red Faction 2's Earth cities relative to Red Faction's Martian underground. Dual firearms, a faster frame rate, and a vastly better multiplayer are among the new features. The focus on destructive weaponry is further increased in Red Faction 2. The game is based on the real-life Red Army faction, just like its forerunner. However, the narrative concepts from Red Faction are more prominent in its sequel. The Earth Defense Force has seized the nanotechnology built by Capek 5 years after the original Red Faction on Mars during the year 2080. The EDF begins a reformation of the Ultor group with its sophisticated military expertise, with the special forces on improved cybernetic enhancements and appropriate armaments. The research undertaken by Capek in this laboratory has, though, been taken over by other insurgent groups and terrorist organizations. This has been going on for years, and the study has changed ownership several times in the criminal underworld. The player assumes the role of an explosive expert, codename Alias, on a special operations assignment to seize the Republic of the Commonwealth's research results. The story follows its consequences, and the adventures are many. This sequel was received decently well too, and looked on course to establish this franchise as a long-standing title in the industry.
Let's go! We need that walker!
Red Faction Guerrilla. Red Faction Guerrilla, often known as RFG, is a THQ-published open-world third-person shooter created by Volition Inc. It was published in June 2009 for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and in September 2009 for Windows. Alec Mason, a destruction specialist who traveled to Mars to make a fresh start, is the protagonist of the novel. Red Faction Origins, a television movie premiere, and Red Faction Armageddon, a direct sequel, follow this game. In the year 2125, Red Faction Guerrilla takes place. The Earth Defense Force, the original Red Faction's friends, has now become Guerrilla's major opponent. Although originally encouraging the Martian workers, Earth's natural assets have become limited, and the global financial system has collapsed as a result of increased commodity, gambling, and a drop in production. The EDF has driven Martian civilization into a perpetual state of forced labor under pressure from Earth's companies and authorities to obtain the riches of Mars at any expense, and at a rate that meets Earth's high requirement. The newly created Red Faction rises up against the EDF in order to push them off the planet and start more reasonable discussions with Earth. This game includes links to the original Red Faction title. EOS is a zone. Hendrix Hall is a facility in which the Martian legislature gathers, and Parker is known as the Old Coot of the Badlands. You'll be sent to the laboratory where Parker battles Capek as part of a mission to recover the lost weapons cache. In the EOS region, there is also a radio identifier of Alias from Red Faction 2 en route to the EDF military headquarters. This installment also garnered enough affection and attention from the fans, making it a hugely comparable success, and arguably the peak of the franchise in contrast to its predecessors. So you can see how the hype around this series was starting to build up, and rightfully so. Fall of Red Faction franchise. RF Armageddon basically follows a terraformer that regulated Mars's weather was assaulted and taken over by a group of cultists, a breakaway faction of the Marauders led by Adam Hale. The terraformer was attacked by Red Faction troops headed by Frank Winters and Darius Mason. Unfortunately, Adam, dressed as a Red Faction member, deceives Darius and destroys the terraformer. The terraformer's collapse causes disastrous climate, forcing the whole civilization to go beneath the surface. While the latest installment, Armageddon, received mostly positive reviews and retained several of the factors that made the previous game so enjoyable, it failed to make the sales impact that THQ required, and further installments of Red Faction were cancelled and their intellectual properties were given away. Future of Red Faction franchise. Will we see another game? Fans of Red Faction will be disappointed to learn that the THQ Nordic display offered no fresh information concerning the series' future. Despite the fact that THQ Nordic had not specifically said that the title would be present at the event, fan anticipation was great. The presentation was promoted as including news from great franchises from their past, and as a result, the name Red Faction appeared. They also hinted at new additions to the series, for which people have been waiting decades. Clearly, followers had every reason to be upbeat. However, there is reason to be optimistic, as reports from a 2019 Nvidia hack revealed that a game dubbed Red Faction Evolution was rumored to be announced during E3 2019. Of course, that never materialized, but it does imply that a game had been in the making. It's unclear whether this is still the situation, particularly in light of the showcase's silence. Even though THQ Nordic is giving them scraps, it gave the audience of the game reason to cheer. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!